Hi there, I'm David, founder and car expert here at Motorenn. And I'm here to share with you some of my thoughts about this beautiful 911 GT3 RS of the 992 generation. A couple notes about Motorenn: we buy, sell, consign, and maintain exotic vehicles. And we're really trying to look at how we share some of our expertise in interacting with these cars with you. So to start with, on this 992 911 GT3 RS, I'm actually a big fan of it. I'm surprised how much I like the car. I will caveat that at its current market pricing of about $400,000 to $450,000, which is ranging between 120 to 130K over MSRP, it does feel steep. But having engaged with the car, I surprisingly really like a lot of the features that I'm seeing. To start with, obviously, as we look at the car, there are massive aero improvements over the base GT3, and actually significant aero improvements over the last generation 991.2 GT3 RS as well. Just pointing out a couple of them, obviously the frunk is gone and it's replaced by very aggressive louvers to reduce air pressure in that vicinity. You have a very aggressive rear wing that's actually an active wing, so it can adjust based on track needs. And then you have some louvers on the front fenders and then a couple of other bits and pieces across, as well as a very trick flat underbody and diffuser. So a lot going on there. What that ultimately means in terms of aero is that this car puts down 1,900 pounds of downforce at 177 miles an hour. Kind of weird amount of downforce, kind of weird amount of at a weird speed. But to put that in context, and I think that's what's important here, to put that in context, another car that I really love, the Dodge Viper ACR, the 2017-ish Dodge Viper ACR, creates about 1,700 pounds of downforce, so 200 less, at that same speed. So that is one of the kings of aerodynamics, and they were really focused on the Dodge Viper ACR creating track records with its massive aero, and this 911 GT3 RS creates more downforce. On top of that, it does so at a lower coefficient of drag. The 911 GT3 RS has about a 0.39 coefficient of drag. Now, to caveat, that's with Porsche saying with the spoiler in its low drag mode, so there may be a little bit of a difference in versus the high drag mode, max downforce mode, but I can't imagine it being that much higher. Again, compared to the Dodge Viper ACR with all of its aero having a drag coefficient of 0.54. So you're getting a lot less drag for about the same amount of downforce, and ultimately that means a faster car on track, which is really cool in terms of what technology has been able to do in that regard. If we go to the inside of 911 GT3 RS, there are significant changes over the base GT3 and again over the 991.2 iteration. I think the main thing to highlight are, of course, the updated infotainment, which is the main update from the last generation, and it's the same as what's in the GT3, and the really cool steering wheel. And I think this is a trick that I've not seen in any other production car to date, and I didn't realize I would love so much. And that on the steering wheel, you have 4 dials. You can choose your sport setting, whether you want sport, track, or comfort. That's something that's been on the 911s for a while. But then you also have ability to change exactly how much slip you want in your traction control, which is similar to what you have in the Mercedes-AMG GT-R Pro series. So that's kind of cool. And the thing that really blows my mind on what you can do with this car is that there's a knob that allows you to change the front and rear bound and rebound on the suspension independently, which is amazing. That's pure race car technology that doesn't exist on any other production car that I've seen that's available or that is part of the 992 GT3 RS. Super cool. With that said, the 911 GT3 RS really encapsulates the adage of a race car that can be streetable. You ultimately have a purebred race car in a package that, if you're driving at slow speeds, feels like you're driving a base 911. And you could hypothetically daily it in terms of that level of comfort. Although when I take a step back and look at this car, obviously with all the massive aero, it's much more of a car that just belongs on the racetrack, maybe at a Cars and Coffee. It's just not really suitable to take on date night, not really the most comfortable take on an extended road trip, and probably in some ways actually a little bit too subdued compared to some of the other cars at this price point. For example, the Aventador SV or the McLaren 765 LT. I'm just not sure if the GT3 RS will capture that level of attention. So again, if you're hyper-focused on a track weapon, this is it. In terms of what we're seeing for maintenance and reliability on this generation of Porsches, I think the good news is they've been great. across the board. Looking at what we've seen with these cars, having them come in, from what our customers have been saying in terms of feedback, and look at the forums as well, there are not a lot of complaints outside of just minor manufacturing defects that occur in any manufacturing process. You don't have the engine problems like you did in the 991.1 GT3s that would require warranty replacement. You don't have the oil pooling that would cause massive smoke clouds. Doesn't happen on this car. Electronics seem to be pretty good. I guess it is what people expect out of Porsche, and that's why they have such a great following. These seem to be very robust. As you drive them, they seem very competent. It's something that I think you can manage and enjoy without significant problems outside of the norm. When we look at today's market values on this vehicle, again, as I stated at the beginning, we're seeing them trading about $120K over MSRP. When they first came out, we were seeing them trading between 150 to upwards of 170, even 200 for some PTS editions of this vehicle. Very lofty numbers. You're talking about $500,000 for a 911 GT3 RS, and that just feels very heavy. That just feels like a big step up over the last generation 991.2 GT3 RS, which can be obtained in the mid 200s, 240 to 260, depending on the packages that you have. But again, there is a step change. I do think there is a big evolution between the two generations. Is it fully worth that $250,000 increase? Probably not. But again, the market has softened a little bit, and right now we're seeing them around the 400 to 440 range, and for about 200K more than last generation GT3 RS. For the right buyer, it can make sense because there's so much going on with this vehicle. A couple things in terms of what you want to look out for in terms of options. Of course, very important to this vehicle is a Weissach package. It is an option. It adds some carbon fiber bits and pieces. It saves some weight. Reality-wise, it's not that big of a deal. You're not going to see a big performance difference between the non-Weissach versus the Weissach. But I think when it comes down to resale and the Porsche community, everybody's looking for that. So if you're going to get one with that, because one, it'll resell for a better value. You'll retain most of the value of that option, and then two, it'll resell faster because most of the other people buying this car are looking for that package. Again, regardless of how much actual real benefit it provides, which is something, but it's not going to change the experience. If you're looking to save a little bit, then maybe look for one without it, because those will probably take a bit more of a valuation hit. Also very important, the extended fuel tank. What we've seen is Porsche is now actually charging for that. It used to be a free option in the previous generations. It's a couple $100, get it. It's a big deal for the Porsche folks. And then front axle lift, I get it. For some Porsche people, they want no weight on the car. They can see that the front axle lift is less racy and sporty. But the reality of the matter is very few of these will end up on track. Proportionally more than other cars, but still very few will end up on track. People will be driving them around the streets of Los Angeles or Miami or Dallas, and on the real roads, this car will scrape. It will scrape everywhere. And so adding on that front axle lift, which adds, I think, like 10, 15 pounds, just do it. And it'll help with resale and your own enjoyment of that vehicle as you're driving around. And so the last two things to consider about options are whether you want to get the Porsche carbon ceramic brakes or the steel rotors. Those are a cost option on this vehicle. It's not standard. I think the one caveat to understand is that if you do take this on track, it may be wiser to have a steel rotor version, because that will be significantly cheaper to operate on the racetrack. And yet the carbon ceramics do provide a performance benefit, the sheer cost difference and negligible endurance difference on the racetrack would make it relatively cost prohibitive for everybody but the wealthiest individuals. But now, if money is no object, hey, get the carbon ceramics. If you're just driving this on the street, the carbon ceramics will potentially last 60, 70, 80,000 miles. So if you're going to have light duty, it's oddly enough where it makes a lot of sense to get the carbon ceramics. And then the last thing is, again, with Porsche, you can option up as many cosmetic choices as your heart desires. I would just generally stay away from that. Get something that looks decently good, but keep the options light on that front, because you're not going to get a lot of retained value out of that. Ultimately, in summation on this vehicle, I think this is a great car for the racetrack. I think this is a great car for the person who wants to collect Porsches. It's great if you are able to take it to cars and coffees often and engage with other enthusiasts. It's not going to be the best in terms of an actual date night kind of car or something that you want to be driving a little bit more frequently or more often. Again, not that necessarily the buyer for this will be doing that, but I think that there are better options out there that you may be using for those choices in your life. So if you like this type of content, please like and subscribe. Also, feel free to leave a comment below. We're always looking at what our viewers are saying and taking the feedback to try to improve this channel, as well as understanding what you may want to see in the future. And we really hope to see you on the next video.